Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spirit School. I hope you're doing amazing. Today, I want to dive into a topic that's been on my heart and been on my mind all year, and this is around paradoxes in life and mediumship. So, what is a paradox? A paradox is essentially two statements that seemingly contradict each other, but in fact, they are both true. And not only are they both true, but they can take you to a deeper level of understanding something. So paradoxes are incredibly important. And I first became aware of them through a course I did through the Caroline Myss Institute. She had a guest teacher come in who shared about contradictions and paradoxes in life. And they did it through the lens and the teachings of American philosopher Henry David Thoreau. And Henry David Thoreau, life's work was around philosophizing a simple life, the simplicities of life. And one of the things that he recognized in his journey was how much we don't love a paradox, how much we do not embrace them, and we seem to overcomplicate our lives by seeing everything as black and white and this dualistic way of thinking. And we know through spiritual evolution, we know through the pathway of spiritual maturity, that multiple truths can coexist at any time, and to have non-dualistic thinking should be a goal for anyone who is on the spiritual path and journey. So after this class that I took, I decided to keep a running notepad on my phone of all the different paradoxes I recognize within life, just to kind of continue with my studies and really embody the teachings that came through in that experience. And so for the episode today, I wanted to pull through the ones that I came across in mediumship. And so I hope you really enjoy it. And the timing of this is significant for me because I have been having to engage and interact a little bit more with the medical system this year than ever before. And I was recently at a medical appointment, and they were asking me about the origin of an experience that I had had, or why did it result in this? And, at the beginning of the conversation, I shared an example of why I feel like things are the way that they are. And then later on in the conversation, I bring another example. And they ended the conversation with me at this appointment. We have a follow-up in a couple of weeks, but they said, what you just said is actually a contradiction. And I want you to come prepared to our next session or next appointment with clear communication. Now, you've been listening to Spirit School for almost 6 years now. Can you believe we're almost 6 years old? And I communicate for a living. So I did take on that comment pretty deeply. And I immediately looked at, where am I not communicating properly? And oh my goodness, I communicate for a living. Like, that's not good. And I felt really insecure for a brief moment. But then I opened up my perspective and I was like, no, both of those things that I said are equally true. And both had an impact to the resultant outcome that I'm experiencing right now. And then I got a little bit defensive because, I'm used to engaging. I worked in the health field for a long time. And whenever you have to work within systems and structures, we know that it's very compartmentalized. And that's not the way life is. Life is interconnected. There's a ton of intersections in life that create a bigger impact in our lives. And so I'm kind of preparing for the next appointment, which is a week from now, because I've had some time to kind of sit with this. And I was like, no, both things exist. And actually, not only do both things that I said exist, but they do take you to that deeper level of understanding of what's happening for me and in my life. So paradoxes have been at the front of my heart once again. So hopefully you enjoy some of the paradoxes I've pulled when it comes to mediumship in the mediumship space. As we're moving along some of these examples, I wonder if you have time to reflect for yourself how true some of these are for you. I would also be curious by the end, and I'll remind you of this as an invitation at the end, but I wonder if there's more that you can think of that you would want to add to this list, because I found this to be quite fun. And again, wherever I can go into the layers and the depths of my spirituality and my spiritual practice, it's like a hobby for me. So I hope that the Spirit School listeners are of the same mindset and you love going deep into some of these topics. And I hope today what I bring to you will have you going down a little bit deeper into your spiritual studies. So let's get started on the paradoxes that I have pulled out. So the first one that was on my list was, You care so much, but it works best when you care less about the outcome. And this was coming from a story that was my first day of doing public readings. I remember this, and it's happened multiple times since then, not in the same scenario, but the same type of experience. And, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, I have to say, and I'm being a little bit cutesy, a little bit, funny and humorous as I'm saying this, because of course we care, and I'm not asking you not to care. But one thing that I have found through doing this work for almost 12 years, and I'm going to go back to my first day of ever doing public readings to kind of anchor this in and bring this home. But I remember preparing for years to be a public reader. It wasn't originally my goal with learning mediumship, but it became very apparent that people wanted to work with me. And so I studied for quite a few years, and then I opened up my first day of paid public readings. I was very nervous. I prepared for a long time. It was sold out. Prepare. Anybody who knows mediumship development intimately before you really become empowered for it, sometimes you can be a little bit neurotic with it. You can be an over-preparer. You can think about it a little bit much. And that was definitely where I was at. I was nervous. I was scared. So I did what I could to pump myself up, to prepare as best I could to serve spirit that day. And on my way out the door, my partner picked a fight with me. And it completely shook me to my core because I was already not working and operating on fully stable ground. And I was devastated. I was literally shocked. And I only had a 5-minute drive to the studio that I was working at that day. And I remember calling my mentor at the time and crying. And I said to her, I'm like, can you please give me comfort that I could do readings sad? Because I am sad. And my mindset at the time was you had to be in a high vibrational space and place to be able to connect with the spirit world. So I was already feeling like I was coming into my first day of paid public readings in a deficit. And my mentor at the time assured me, you'll be fine. Spirit will work through whatever you have going on. Just show up with a heart of service and you will be fine. And the truth of the matter is I was so shooketh as I was even coming into the door and greeting my first client. I honestly didn't have time to fuss. I didn't have time or space or capacity to overthink, to pray, to cleanse my chakras, to expand my light, all the things that I felt like I needed to be able to connect. And I have to say, the connections that day were so easy and they were flowing and they were beautiful. And it was a shock for me. And I remember studying under different mediums over the years that would share similar experiences. And they would share, I would over prepare, and then one day I didn't have time to do my regular process because we hit traffic and I had to go straight on stage, and it worked better than ever before. And so I find this to be an interesting paradox that, caring deeply about this work is natural, but I've learned that it flows best when I can detach from the outcome. So it's about finding that balance and caring enough to be invested, but detach enough to let spirit lead the session. So I'm curious if that rings true for any of you who've been doing this for a little while. Another one of the paradoxes that I marked down is when I was thinking about my time in grief. And the paradox is you can be in grief and still love. And, I've hit grief before with disenfranchised grief, loss of job, loss of marriage, loss of, pet, of course. And this is grief that is not commonly recognized by greater society, but it's grief all the same. And when I had my worst bout of grief in 2020, I remember being fascinated by it. I was like, wow, this is nothing can prepare you for this. Even being a medium, a death doula, having somebody that you love being ill for so long, having that anticipatory grief you think might lessen the severity of the grief once you experience that loss. And it doesn't. And I know that to be true for myself as well as other people I've held space for. But what's fascinating to me was I could be in this devastatingly space of grief, yet still have so much love in my heart and still have so much love for my children, still have so much love for spirit, though I will say there was a bit of faith tested within that experience. My faith was tested, but I still had a lot of love for the world, and I still had a lot of love to give. And that in itself was a paradox I had to acknowledge, because when we look at, the vibrational spectrum that they have of like words that carry different vibrations, grief and love are on completely different ends of that spectrum, but they can both exist at the same time. And grief can feel all consuming. Yet I discovered that love still finds a way to shine through. And it's about holding both, allowing grief its space while recognizing that love remains just as strong. So I wonder if you too have felt that or experienced that. A more humorous paradox that I pulled on my list with mediumship paradoxes. And again, I'm going to hope to phrase this in a way that is as true as it sounds in my mind. This is my first time saying some of these out loud. But, with mediumship in particular, this is the third paradox. There are many forms of mediumship. There's like physical mediumship, trance mediumship, inspirational mediumship, mental mediumship. And what I do is mental mediumship. And so one of the paradoxes is, isn't it interesting that mental mediumship relies on using my mind, yet the very act of thinking can be the biggest barrier to making a clear connection? Let me say that again. So mental mediumship relies on using the mind, yet the very act of thinking can be a barrier to making a clear connection. And when I came into this paradox, it actually helped me in kind of amplifying my discernment around what are my thoughts and what are spirit's thoughts. And that's what I love about philosophy, and that's what I love about spiritual evolution in this way, because thinking about these things, recognizing how that is true within my own practice has taken me to a deeper layer and level of discerning my internal voice from spirit's voice. So mental mediumship calls for the mind to engage, yet the very act of thinking too much can block the connection. So it's about balance. It's about using the mind while quieting its chatter and allowing spirit to come through clearly. Curious how you feel about that one. Another one that comes up that I teach about a lot in the initiation, we're currently in the 11th round of the initiation, and we'll be focusing a little bit on this in future classes. We only had 2 classes so far. And this paradox is around the need for validation, yet the need for validation can also be a block for you. So let's get clear about this. So we need to seek validation that we are on the right path. When we present information that's coming through for us, we need our clients to give us like a yes or a no to let us know that we're on the right path. But if we have that internal need and that pull and that desire to be validated, to let us know that it was good enough, that it was enough, that we are enough, that desire, that pull will pull you so far out of a spiritual link so quickly. So again, balance is such a big word with these paradoxes, because we really need to be able to walk that fine line of needing the validation to let us know, to help us build our confidence in the connection. A lot of the evidence that we give is not just for our sitter, but it's for us as the readers to let us know that we're connected. A lot of us in mediumship start off skeptical, like not just skeptical of mediumship, but skeptical that we too could do this, that we could be a medium. And so for us, the evidence is very much like a sticky glue. And it helps us build our confidence in the connection for the messages that should eventually be able to come through. But that desire, that need for validation is really rocky when it comes to your spiritual self-esteem. If you train yourself to only feel empowered when you are validated in something, you are not building real, true spiritual self-esteem. It's just something that's going to give you a quick dopamine hit. I got a yes. Oh, I got to know. And it will take you down really, really hard. So yes, we need validation. We need to seek validation and know we're on the right path. But I've learned that the need for it can really cloud the channel. So it's about trusting the connection while you're still welcoming gentle confirmations when they come in. So I wonder if you think about your relationship, if you're a working medium or a practicing medium, and your relationship with validation. I wonder if this paradox will take you to a deeper realization around it. Now, the next paradox is one that I believe anyone who is on the spiritual path will or should have experienced by now. And I've heard this said by many people. But it's essentially the more I experience, the less I realize I know. So the more spiritual experiences that we have, the more understanding we have around spiritual matters, the more we realize we know nothing because there's so much to know. And when you pull on a stream of consciousness, when you pull on like a life's tether, like a life's thread, it just doesn't end. And this actually, with the declaration, which is a program I just run twice a year, I'll be running it in December if I don't have surgery in November. But, I guided people through identifying what their own personal values are and personal statements of professional standards because we're in unregulated spaces. And this was one of mine around spiritual humility is, understanding and accepting that we will never have true certainty in spiritual matters. It's unattainable. And that is because I've realized that the more spiritual things that I experience, the more I realize we've barely touched the surface, right? So that's quite a fun paradox. So the more I dive into the spirit work, the more I realize how little I truly know. And it's about embracing this as a strength and understanding that learning leads us to a greater sense of humility and openness. And I feel like that should give you a sense of peace, maybe in your heart, that there really is nothing to be achieved. There's no master program when it comes to spirituality. There's no doctorate you can get. It's just a constant unfoldment and a journey that will take you many lives. So I hope you really do have fun on the journey. Just a couple more here for you. One that has been something that I've had to walk a lot in my path, and this one is around, it's not about us as mediums, but we are still at the center of it. And when I have suffered in the past with things like performance anxiety, one of the antidotes to my performance anxiety has been a prayer that I say to myself that is simple, and it's simply, this is not about me. And in truth, when we are conduits for the other side, for the spirit world, it's not about us. It's about our sitter. It's about their need and the healing journey that they came for. And it's about the healing for the spirit world as well. And so we're at the center of it. It's our voice. It's our reputation. It's our name. It's our translation. It's our language. But it's not about us. And what a complex thing to consider. So mediumship isn't about us, yet we're at the very center of the process. It's about recognizing that while we are a conduit, the work always is about spirit and the sitter. Love it. Okay, 3 more for you, friends. So the next one I have for you is short, but we receive by letting go. We receive by letting go. So the more we want to receive, the more we must let go. And it's about finding the balance and surrendering expectations so that the messages can flow freely. Now, as I've played with this paradox, I've started to realize how much information comes through in a mediumship session in the out-breath and the exhale. Right? I've been doing a lot of breath work these past 3 years. And I've been a lot more centered and focused on the breath and using it as a superpower in my own spiritual practice and my own restorative practices. And when I tune in, like even if I'm in a moment where I don't know where to go next, often if I just lean back in my chair and I take one deep breath within the exhale, within that letting go, information is received. The funny thing too is that now I'm thinking about it, there's another example around this in mediumship where, sometimes I'll see baby mediums struggle with what to say next. And I was like, the next thing may not come until you say the first thing. You have to let that first thing go. But I think people wait for signier signs or signiest signs, or I need more. What's the next piece? I need 5 pieces before I say the first thing. When really you have to let go of that first piece of information before the next one comes in. So something to pay attention to is you're becoming more aware around your own personal practice, how true that is for you. Okay, So the second to last one that I have for you today is around confidence and humility. So confidence and humility coexist in the medium's path, and trusting your abilities while knowing you are only the vessel and not the source. So for me, humility has always been an anchor in my work. It's a way people have always described me, as being humble and maybe over humble, I don't know. But humility for me has always been an anchor for me in my work. And I've also come to realize that confidence is essential too. So it's about striking that balance between confidence, being confident enough to step into the work, but humble enough to remember that you're merely a vessel. And I have a mediumship friend who said something to me a couple years ago where he said, the only difference between a good medium and a great medium is confidence. And I've seen different mediums work that I admire that just seem to be fully confident and maybe not exemplifying a lot of humility in the work. I can't say that to be sure for their personal life. I'm not obviously with them 24/7, and I always really admire that. And so for me, a lot of the journey around, self-esteem and true personal empowerment when it comes to like my mediumship has been really walking that in between line of confidence and humility. And can we not have both? Can we be both at the same time? And can humility and confidence coexist within each other? I do believe so. I do believe so. So I'm curious for yourself how true this feels for you and where you walk within that line yourself. Okay, the last one I have for you today is around boundaries and openness. In mediumship, boundaries are essential in this work for self-care, to be able to do this work sustainably, yet we have to remain open to Spirit's messages, right? So it's about setting healthy limits while staying receptive to what's meant to come through. So being open and boundaried is a paradox. Even in a sitting, when I am doing my private sittings, I've had to teach this in really detailed ways because my most recent round of the initiation is primarily brand new baby mediums with a handful of people who are full-time professional. It's been quite fun. And so I've had to go into some more details about like the anatomy of a sitting. And this is something I had to think about the other day because people ask me, like, how do I not cry with my client? I'm like, well, for one, I think you should and can. I don't think it necessarily deems you as unprofessional. It actually deems you as highly empathetic. But I could understand how crying mid-session would disrupt your channel. So I can understand that desire and that need to not want to cry. So the way that I describe this is like there's a way to adjoin with somebody's aura, and then there's a way to enmesh with somebody's aura. And when I'm in that three-way communication, I seem to have a boundaried way because I teach about energetic sovereignty and I'm very passionate about it. And I know that I am the conductor of my own energetic experience. I'm the victim of nothing when it comes to the world of energy. And so what I do is I enmesh my energy with that of the spirit world, but I only adjoin that of my client's energy. So I may feel emotional because I feel connected to something that's coming up, but having these boundaries while being open keeps me from getting lost into my sitter's experience. And this too helped me when it came to my performance anxiety and, the first few years of my mediumship journey really being overwhelmed by wanting to make sure my sitter had a wonderful experience. I was actually burning myself out by fully enmeshing into the energy of my sitter because I wanted them to be happy. I wanted them to have every single need met. And this did really burn me out. And it kind of took away from my capacity to blend more deeply with the spirit world. So I had to start making some choices. And I actually did this through a declaration. And I believe in declarations. They're very powerful. They're more powerful than even prayers for me. And I said to Spirit, I work for you now. And this is how I restored balance to that not having the best boundaries in my sessions and just being open to everything and everybody. Was I had to choose to get out of my people pleasing and like working purely for the human in front of me and making sure that they were happy and that they enjoyed it, to just declaring to the spirit world. And this happened about 4 years ago for me, where I said, I work for you now. I work on your behalf, fully in your energy. And so when I'm in a sitting, if I think about my aura as a light, I'm just essentially, fully blended with spirit, but just partially blended with my sitter. Whereas if I'm working psychically, which sometimes people come sit with me because they just want psychic readings, I'll be fully blended in with my sitter. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to be boundaried and having to be open as well. Okay, so these are the paradoxes that I have come up with. And I'm wondering what your takeaways are. And do you see possibly how some of these paradoxes may have limited you, may have limited your perception around your spirit work? Maybe they just name a few things for you. I would love to know if there's more that you would add to this list. There's many ways that you can leave a comment on Spotify. I can actually respond to comments now, which is a new feature. All of these episodes are now YouTube videos. So if you're interested in watching the YouTube, head over there. And yeah, I invite you to start thinking about where paradoxes show up in your life. Maybe it's in your relationships, your career, your own spiritual journey. But paradoxes are a reminder that life isn't always black and white. And often there are deeper truths that lie within the space of what appears to be a contradiction, but yet it's a paradox. So I hope you enjoyed this topic, friends. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you on the next one.